like this shirt because it makes my arms look huge, but they're actually really small. Like it just hangs down a lot.
Oh,
So it
that's what you're talking about.
looks like I have massive delts. Hi,
That's your
welcome
cold
to
open.
Circling the Nest.
That is your cold. Wow, and you're doing the intro now. This is crazy. Um, wow, yeah, this is where we are. We're circling the nest. CSS's weekly Seattle Seahawks show. With Charles question mark whatever you want to call me, as long as it's not derogatory, which some people prefer that. And Jake Parr, of course. Look at Jake. He's happy. He's smiling. He's
Well,
got facial hair. What a guy. What are you gonna do about it? Jake, we're in this off season. It is championship weekend. Would be nice to get back there one day. Um, and we don't have too much going on besides updates to the offensive coordinator Chase.
and welcome to Circling the Nest. We're doing an
Why are
emergency
you
segment because
you're
the
doing this
Seahawks grabbed
again?
an offensive coordinator.
Yes, so hours after Jake and I filmed the original show, this will just go into the talk about the offensive coordinator, and then I think I'll leave in the parts where we talked about the other offensive coordinators so you can see what we were thinking before this. But the Seahawks have hired Klint Alexander Kubiak
Lo
as
and
their
behold,
next
the guy we
offensive
didn't talk about.
coordinator. Yeah, yeah, a guy we didn't really think would get this job. Wow, did you know he played football at Colorado State? Wow, what a guy.
Wow. Did you know that he was the
Um,
offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints?
and the Vikings back in 21.
That's what they be saying.
Oh, interesting. He was a safety at Colorado State. Fascinating. Okay. But yeah, no, I mean, I was gonna tell Jake this, but he's like, save it for the pod. I'm like, that's a great idea. Um, he's had an interesting coaching history. I mean, 2010, 2012, he was at Texas A&M as an offensive quality control guy and a grad assistant. 2013 he was when he made the jump to the NFL with the Vikings as an offensive quality control guy for 2 years. He went back to college in 2015 to coach wide receivers at Kansas, but then has been in the NFL since then with the Broncos, Vikings, 49ers in 2023 as their passing game coordinator. And then back at OC and then an OC for the Saints most recently. He's been under some pretty successful coaches. I was gonna say Dennis Allen first, but that's not the right one. Leslie Frazier, his dad is Gary Kubiak,
It's got
Kyle
to count for
Shanahan,
something.
and Mike Zimmer. I mean, we'll see. He's got a beard, so you might like him.
There you
Um,
go.
but his teams are interesting to me in terms of team ranks per Pro Football Reference here. In the 2 years that he's been a coordinator. Sorry, I mean he's never ranked higher than 18th of the 2 years in teams rank and point differential. His in 2021, his Vikings team was 12th in total yards offensively. So there's that. They didn't turn the ball much over, but the one thing I was going to look at really was the rushing game, with the whole
Hmm.
talk about, Mike McDonald and philosophy. And his teams were pretty average rushing the ball. Outside of this last year with the Saints as an OC at 21st in total attempts for rushing the football. So I don't know.
I don't.
I'm kind of scratching my head about this, Jake. I don't know.
I'm
What do you?
curious what went down in the interviews that they had because like did he just interview really well? What went on with the other coordinators that they interviewed? Because yeah, like you said, this is slightly baffling. Now the Saints got off to a hot start this year,
Yeah.
those first couple of games, and they too were saddled with like series of offensive line injuries. Um, so my best bet for the mindset behind this move is Mike McDonald and the Seahawks think that well, this is a guy that's got experience dealing with a an offensive line that's had trouble, that's kind of been piecemeal, just put together, through whatever's in the junk drawer. Um, if that's what we're doing with again next year, if something happens, if we have like a similar situation with the offensive line next year, this is a guy that's been in that boat before. Maybe he knows how to
Sure.
navigate that. That's I think a little bit charitable. Like I'm not thrilled by this. It's a little bit perplexing. And McDonald talked about like he talked about a couple of things. A lot of it was just the complimentary football again, which to me is starting to just sound like a buzzword. Um, every time anybody says it, it means less and less to me. Um, Huh, bah, bah, bah. Yeah, I think McDonald. Yeah, he said in the press conference, we want more from our offensive line. Guys know that, but I believe the guys we have. I believe in the guys we have, and that we haven't had. Wow, I believe in the guys that we have, and any opportunity we have a chance to develop those guys and make our team better, we're going to do it. So if he thinks Klint Kubiak is the way to do that, I guess good for him.
That sentence is kind of scary because it's like, are you banking on like we talked
Yeah.
about Satoa Lomea guard in the episode already. Well, not already. This will be earlier in the show. Um,
hmm
but
Coming
like he's
soon on Circling the Nest.
yeah,
Laumea
like
Discourse.
are you banking on like Christian Haynes, who you drafted, again with the second round pick to fill in there? Like, are you banking on them taking a big leap? Like, you need a center for sure. I don't know. That is scary. I really hope it's not like Mariner-esque and they're like, we're gonna take these guys we already have.
hmm But
So
yeah, and like we've been talking about through the previous couple episodes of this pod, like the team, the 24 team was pretty good. Like, you know, very easily could have made the playoffs. We want iteration and we want improvement. We don't want to be in the position that the Mariners are in right now, where they're right on the fringe, but not willing to make that next step to like get the big piece to
yeah.
move on
Yep.
to the higher level. If the Seahawks are doing the same thing, that just sucks. And like if we're not going to make a big move for kind of a good interior line, yeah, the whole we believe in the guys we have thing is a
You
little bit
see what I'm
scary.
saying?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of I'm just hoping that it's coach talk. Like you don't want to go, well,
It's true.
our offensive line sucks.
Terrible.
This is a guy that knows how to deal with sucky offensive line, so we're getting him. We're gonna get some new guys soon. All right, like you can't go out there and say that.
No, that's true. Like there are so many instances where they say, "Yeah, we believe," like particularly that we believe in our guys. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
it's if you've ever played a video game where there's like be a pro, it's like
Yeah.
negative team chemistry.
Uh-huh.
Like that
I'm
would
sure
certainly
I'm
do
sure the White
that.
Sox manager last year went out and said we believe in our
Oh
guys
wow,
sometime in May.
yeah, or all year. Um, so yeah, no, it'll be. Yeah, I don't know. I am just kind of scratching my head on this. Maybe I need some people who are smarter than me to tell me about this, but like I just don't get it.
That
Like,
means you, commenters.
oh, shut up. It's like it's interesting, especially with that Saints offense too, because I do think he's again, we talked about this, I think later on, no, in the offensive coordinator discourse, but you're oh God, I opened the Saints roster and I saw Ugo Amadi, Seahawks legend.
Jump
Wow.
scare.
Um, like I think you do have another better offense talent wise, God, yeah, they were playing Spencer Rattler by the end of that season. But you've got Alvin Kamara there. Oh, they had Jamal Williams, that's right. Dante Pettis. Wow, UW legend Dante Pettis.
Yeah, no, they had a hot
MVS.
start. Like
Yeah.
I guess Kubiak was banking on that in the interview, saying, "Look at what I did before it all went wrong. Um,
Let's see
I
how this went.
I can be magic for you. I promise it won't all go wrong again." And of course, it's going to because it's football. People are going to get hurt.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the beast.
Ooh. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, at least it's a box checked off for your off season and you don't have to worry about it too much. But I wonder how much
I was hoping we could get one more week out of coordinator discourse for the
out of
pod.
coordinated discourse. I guess they saw the other guy that was Stenovich. They said this guy sucks.
Yeah,
We gotta
like
hire
that
somebody.
interview on Saturday was so bad. They were like, "We got to
He came in smelling like cheese. They're like, nope,
uh-huh.
nope,
No, we got to get
no
somebody
cheese
now."
curds. Came in with his Packers. No, I'm kidding.
They want beignets instead. Same with New
Mm,
Orleans. I don't blame
ever
them.
since the Princess and the Frog, I've wanted to taste a beignet.
Have you ever been to New Orleans?
Mm-mm. I'm
You
not
gotta
going
go.
this year for the Super Bowl either. Terrible,
You gotta
terrible.
go. Go to Cafe Du Monde. It's a good place. This podcast is not endorsed by Cafe Du Monde.
I wish. I think I've heard of Cafe Newman before.
They're quite
Someone else has
famous.
told me. So make it another. Oh, okay. Well,
When
but
New Orleans gets an expansion team for baseball,
oh, okay, that would be one. Um,
New
give
Orleans
them
and
the
Austin.
Athletics. New Orleans Athletics.
I c- actually, you're cooking.
Hmm?
You're,
Hmm?
mm.
Hmm? I am hungry. But yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, the sentiment is the same. Like it is kind of an interesting pick here. So well, I mean, hey, what if it comes out next year, and he's able to cook with what we've got? I
Yeah.
mean, that remains possible, but it is at least just looking at history, it is kind of fascinating to see this. I was gonna say I wonder how much of this was I'm gonna say it right this time because prepare yourself, we're gonna say his name wrong a lot. But Hank Fraley, like I wonder how much of it they were like, we wanted this guy. We were yep, it is Hank Fraley. I got that right that time. He's a thick guy.
I love
I
a
just
thick
wondered,
coach.
yeah. Well, speaking of that, it was interesting watching the Eagles win the NFC Championship game, and then I saw Clint Hurt on their sideline. Remember Clint Hurt? God, what a guy.
What a guy.
Um, I just wonder how much they needed to pivot after that news. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
Frank Haley would have been the guy.
God damn it.
I did that on
So
purpose. I mean,
I
yeah, I'm surprised they're not going with a guy that's got like a proven record, we'll say.
yeah.
Especially because like in the last couple of press conferences, McDonald's been talking about how this position is a very attractive position with a very
Hmm.
competent core team, especially on the receiving end and on the rushing end, or on the running end, which is true, right? Like, who doesn't want to coordinate Geno Smith and DK Metcalf and JSN and K9 and Zach Charbonnet? Like that, those are great guys to draw up plays for.
Hmm.
So, I figure this would be a little bit more attractive in position if we'd get somebody that has a little bit more of that proven experience. I really wonder what happened in the interviews. Because I think that's got to be the deciding factor here. Because on
Yeah.
paper, by history, it doesn't track for me.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some explanation of rationale, but I am scratching my scalp at this point. I'm not scratching my head, I'd say, because you've got things. God damn
I'm
you.
I'm pulling my hair. Yeah.
God, you're terrible. So I don't know. That is a revision. You'll get to hear us now talk about offensive coordinators and our thoughts on them. But Klint Kubiak from the Saints offensive coordinator this past year, has been made official. They've already made the Seahawks post about it, so it is done and dusted. So enjoy us saying Frank Fraley, Hank Fraley, saying
Hank Haley.
like 80 times about that other discourse, as well as continuing to look at positional groups. As this season continues to roll along. So we'll start it here with the offensive coordinator. Pursuit here, and that's going to be interesting. Just we've talked about it already, with who Mike McDonald goes with to replace Ryan Grubb. Frank Haley was nope. Hank Fraley.
There you
Wow,
go.
I mixed it around. Oopsie, sorry, Hank. Was a guy that I think we both kind of looked at and thought would be a guy, and with the offensive line approach certainly would fit the idea of getting into maybe whatever not Ryan, Mike McDonald's philosophy is there. But that's not happening as Fraley is staying in Detroit with a promotion, as NFL Network reported back on Friday. Was the offensive line coach in Detroit. Now has the title of run game coordinator and offensive line coach. So he gets a little bit of a bump. He had interviewed with the Seahawks in person back on Tuesday, and he was thought to be a guy with Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for Detroit, leaving for Chicago, which is somewhat interesting and spicy, but I don't really care about the NFC North that much. Um, thought he might join him in Chicago. That wasn't the case. He gets this upgrade in his current situation with Detroit, and his wife Danielle indicated on social media that there was something close with Seattle, writing in a comment, "It was close, but Detroit is home," with two exclamation points. Damn, don't be that excited. Um, so yeah, that was kind of tough to lose that, considering how it seemed kind of like that hiring would make sense, right? And to bring in a passing game coordinator like Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, to pair with Fraley. There's no current report that the Seahawks have talked to Turner.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, now we kind of get left here. There are two other coaches besides Fraley now who have had a second. interview as well as an in-person interview with Seahawks. That is Klint Kubiak, the 2024 offensive coordinator for the Saints, and Grant Udinski, the offensive assistant coordinator and assistant quarterbacks coach with the Vikings. Both of them remain. Both of those two are still around. Kubiak could be the new OC under new Jets head coach, former Lions DC Aaron Glenn. Um, and Kubiak could stay with the Saints as they still remain looking for a head coach. Um, they only had Seahawks only had one interview with Thomas Brown, who ended the season as the Bears interim offensive coordinator. And Byron Leftwich, who was a guy I think we talked about it potentially as being the passing game coordinator if they Fraley, still the former OC of the Buccaneers.
Mhm.
Um, there's talk about Bobby Slowick, who was fired as the OC for the Texans, but the newest report about an offensive coordinator chase is Adam Stenovich, the OC for the Packers. Uh, it was reported on Saturday that he had interviewed for the Seattle job. That makes it 6 candidates to interview for that job. Jake, you have any thoughts or disappointments on Fraley no longer being available, as well as any thoughts on either any of the guys they've already interviewed, or maybe Stenovich, or maybe someone they haven't talked to yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bummed about Hank Fraley, right? Frank Haley, Frank. God,
Hank Fraley.
we were just talking about baseball. I got Rayleigh on the mind, so I can't.
That's fair.
Um, yeah. So, Adam Sternovich could be good. Stenovich. Wow, I can't do my R's today. I'm a fantastic speaker. Adam Stenavich is really interesting to me. Um, the Packers certainly kicked our teeth in front of God and everybody on Sunday Night Football. They haven't been incredible this year. And I mean, they were placed on fraud watch, getting bounced pretty. Buh, 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 buh. What's the word I'm looking for? Unceremoniously. There we go. They got bounced pretty unceremoniously from the playoffs by the Eagles. So it's not like we're not gonna get a wizard out of Stenovich. I mean, maybe we would. But he was a left tackle when he was a college player.
Mm.
Offensive line position. He probably knows line right really well. He's probably um, got that kind of experience. And if we're not being able to get the Detroit guy, I'm not going to say his name because I could probably just gonna mess it up again. If we're not going to get Hank Hank Haley, will say both ways. We're probably Stanovich is probably our next best bet because he does have that like offensive line experience, if not coaching them from playing.
Sure.
And you know, that's still what we need. And so I probably think Stanovich is our best bet. Who did you say was a potential like who's interviewed from the Vikings? Did you say?
I believe that was Udinski.
Yes, Grant Udinski,
Yeah,
the assistant quarterbacks coach. That also could be fun, but like we said last time, we don't really know what the philosophy, like the actual philosophical differences that Mike McDonald referenced were with Grubb. Like we're
yeah.
assuming it's something to do with running, but he said in the press conference afterwards that it's not that simple. There's a little more complicated there than just run the ball more,
Run
Ryan.
the ball.
Um,
Please run the ball.
Please run, please. So I don't know if like Udinsky is specifically who we want, like because he's more of like a quarterback whisperer, and I think I'm like before. I don't think Gino needs like a personal whisperer like that kind of guy. Um, I'm looking at Udinsky's page on Vikings.com, and he's also the chief of special projects. Which does sound like the Vikings are siphoning off money from the military industrial complex to build a Death Star.
Maybe.
Uh, which, that is certainly one way to finally win a championship is to threaten to blow up the world. If you don't, I think that would improve their odds. but yeah, I don't think we need Udinski. I think, kind of the breaking report from uh, just this last weekend, Stenovic is probably going to be not probably going to happen. Probably the best. Probably would be the best now. That Frank Fraley is no longer available.
I think with Stenovic, like the Packers had a solid offense throughout the course of the year, and that was their wide receiver core maybe underrated, but certainly is nowhere near what the Seahawks wide receiver core is, right? Well, at
Hmm.
least in the current moment,
Yeah.
right? Like, can you if the Packers had a JSN, like you
Oh
know,
yeah.
right? So and plus, it's not like the Packers just threw the football all the time because obviously they have Josh Jacobs, but yeah, they were able to use him a lot through the course of the season. So I just think with the improved personnel that he would have here, he
Hmm.
could do some damage.
Yeah.
Um, so
I mean, when they
yeah,
played us, it was
it's
clear they were in a whole nother league, and as opposed to the Vikings, where we made a game out of it.
yeah, yeah. So that could be interesting. Um, I just wonder who might get second interviews and such that maybe didn't. Um, but yeah, there is. I mean, it's fascinating seeing the coaching differences go on here. Pete Carroll has a job now with the Raiders, so
Good for him. We should
good
do
for
some
Pete.
investigative journalism. We should just camp outside the front office with binoculars and see who goes in.
You
Who
just
comes
want to
out
go down
looking
to
happy? Who
Renton
comes
and
out looking sad? Yeah. Yeah,
or
exactly.
if last season was anything, one of us needs to camp at Dino's pub.
Yeah, there you go.
See which guy comes in. If Hank Fraley would have come in, you see a big guy, be like, all right, he's gonna need a lot of wings.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's not the most glamorous thing to keep track of, but certainly could make a big impact if you're able to utilize the tools the right way. So
Probably the most it has a pretty strong bearing, at least, on like what their success next year is going to
oh,
be. Because
absolutely.
like this is a, and we've said this every week, but this is a team that could easily have been in the playoffs and are probably, you know, judging by what's happened, this has been a wide open bracket, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the teams that we expected to dominate have kind of fallen by the wayside, right? Like your Detroit Lions, for example. Um, so yeah, if they had made it this playoffs into this tournament, I think they would have done well. Just given the chaos of football, and I think like we saw last year, they always kind of played up to the moment or played down to the moment, such as the Bears game. I don't
Ugh.
like you had mentioned a lot of people that had interviewed from the Bears. I hope that organization is considered radioactive to the front office.
Don't touch it. Don't
Don't
touch it.
please no. Certainly, I don't want anybody from like the management side of things because
No.
it's their fault more than it is the players. Even though the players are a little bit stinky,
Stinky.
a little bit bad at the football. Um, please do not give me the offensive coordinator, the interim offensive coordinator who masterminded the 6-3 game. Um, that I made my parents watch that game. Have I told you that?
Oh, yes, I do remember that. That was
Yeah,
terrible. How could you do that to them?
that might have been the worst football game I've ever seen in my life. Um,
Certainly up there.
yeah, and like I've seen a lot of I watched a lot of high school football. I'm from Florida, or not from. Oh my god, oh my
Who are
god,
you?
I can't believe I said that. Oh, I was
Let's
trying
we're just
to
gonna
I
end
was
the show.
I was trying to say Friday Night Lights. Oh my gosh, I'm from Texas. I've seen a lot of high school football. I can't believe I said Florida.
Florida.
That's gonna haunt me forever.
Well, maybe you can. We'll give you some time to reconsider your actions there. Um,
So, the Seahawks have some players, don't they?
Currently, yeah. We'll continue and move into the different positional grouping breakdowns. Starting with corners here, we'll try to avoid the offensive line mess for a little bit. We'll look at corner. Um, Corner is an interesting position for Seattle, right? Like Devon Witherspoon continues to look great. He
Hmm.
didn't have the
Pro
interception
bowler.
numbers this year, which is fine, right? Yeah. Tariq Woolen is interesting.
Yeah.
Since he kind of burst onto the scene he's kind of had an interesting last few years. Like I'll see the posts where some of his numbers, like average separation, and they're great,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there are games where he'll get benched for the first series, right? Um, so he's also an interesting one because he's in the last year of his rookie deal. So what does his future look like? As he becomes a UFA after this season. Spot Track here has Kobe Bryant listed as a cornerback still, but he's really made the move to safety, so I'm going to ignore that. You've got Nehemiah Pritchett, who you drafted out of Auburn this past year, and he was in some games.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of drops off a cliff,
Mm-hmm.
right? You go with Tyler Hall, Demarion Williams, Ryan Cooper, guys I really haven't heard of. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it becomes
You
interesting
got Trey Brown.
because
He's kind of floating around there too.
they don't even have him listed on here.
Oh, really?
Maybe if I
I got
look at
him.
free
I got him
agents.
on Pro Football Reference here.
Um, maybe if I look at free agents.
Oh yeah.
Because oh yeah, okay, here we go. Um, yeah, Artie Burns, Trey Brown, Josh Jobe. Like that's why I was like, wow, I feel like there were more quarterbacks here.
Yeah.
Um, Trey Brown was interesting because I kind of thought he would have more of a season. And he had a rough couple of games. I think he even went on Twitter. He was like, "Hey, like y'all turn on me after one game." I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah, he was
it's a
posting
bad look."
through it.
You remember? Yeah, my brother in Christ. The last thing you do need to do is post through it.
Hmm.
Um, Josh Jobe was a guy who was interesting. I mean, he broke Josh Allen's streak of like games without or throws without a pick, right? Which is funny
Yes.
because the Seahawks did get destroyed in that game. Um, and he kind of seemed to be a guy that took over as one of the top three or four corners that they had.
Hmm.
Um, Artie Burns was a guy he's 29, he's almost 30. And he was more often than not a practice squad call up, right?
Yeah.
Like they would activate him off the practice squad several times. So, yeah, you really go from your top two guys and Woolen and Witherspoon,
Hmm.
and then, they're a different level in guys like Trey Brown and Joe. Maybe you put Pritchett in there, but he was a rookie who hardly played. And then it's just basically like practice squad guys. I don't even really include Artie Burns because,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Like it was solid, uh, but the big question I think that lies is Tariq Woolen or Reek Woolen. Sorry, and I remember he changed it.
Hmm.
What do you think? What happens there?
I mean, yeah, I like him. I'm not sure. You've got his spot track pulled up, right? Like, what's
Yeah,
his
let me go
contract?
back.
He is still like with the Hawks for 25,
Yes,
correct?
sir. He's
Yes.
making 5 million.
Good for
5 million this year.
He deserves it.
Um, that's his base salary. No incentives really. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm a Reek Willen enjoyer for sure.
Okay.
He's up there in like your upper strata. I feel like he was involved in pretty much every play. Uh, he put up good tackle numbers. I mean, 3 interceptions, tied with fellow corner Kobe Bryant. Um, I think certainly, like we said, like you've got your two kind of tiers, or I guess really three tiers of corner right now, where you've got your Witherspoons and your Woolens, um, and then it drops off real hard to like your guys that just kind of float around like Job, like Pritchett, and then so yeah, I mean Rick Woolen, I love yeah, he's definitely great. He's a good complement, I think, to Witherspoon, who's kind of your first guy that comes in. Um, on the quarterback. He made 6 tackle for losses last year. And so you got him coming in. You got Reek, who stays out a little bit more. Um, yeah, no, I mean, I I enjoy. He forced a fumble too. That's fun. Um, and like you can really tell in kind of these turnover numbers, like that really illustrates the difference between the levels of cornerback here because we didn't have the Seahawks didn't have, I should say, too many takeaways, I believe,
No.
which was like a big problem with the defense. Not that the defense had too many problems. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, rolling with Reek. He had four, with his three interceptions and one fumble. Um, he's a fun football player, and my philosophy is that you go with the guys that are fun.
Yeah, and I'd say with what you know, I mean, it's like this. I don't. Seattle has things they need to focus on in free agency outside and the draft outside of outside of cornerback, right?
Yeah.
Like I imagine they'll take somebody in the draft, um, corner wise or secondary wise, but
Hmm.
they're not going to be big spenders in the secondary in that regard. I mean, I feel like the secondary as a whole, like you're fine safety wise. I don't imagine Rayshawn Jenkins is back because he's kind of taken a back seat to Kobe Bryant and Julian Love, right? Um, yeah, and even the cornerback market isn't that illustrious either. Carlton Davis is your top guy there, at least for spot track. Carlton Davis, Javarius Ward, DJ Reed. You remember DJ Reed? Um, Byron Murphy, former Seahawk. That could be cool. Wow, the husk of Stephon Gilmore, who's going to be 35 next year. Like, yeah, I mean, it's not super illustrious. I don't even think safety wise it is either. But I just think that there's other things that Seattle will need to spend money on. Um, and I'd rather stay with Reek Woolen, Von Witherspoon. Like that's such a great duo there. And then I don't know, Josh Jobe kind of seemed to take over that spot during the season. Like if he's an
Hmm.
RFA, I'm sure you could bring him back relatively cheap, you
Yeah,
know.
he's the other only other cornerback to record an interception besides Reek and Bryant.
So yeah, I wouldn't really mess with that. Like I think that's generally fine. I think there's a lot of discourse about Reek Woolen, which is fine, but I'm fine with where they're at. Cornerback wise. Offensive line wise is a much different tone. Gary, ooh,
Way.
sorry to you were like lulled into comfort with the cornerbacks and consistency, and then I threw that at you like a hot coffee. Ugh.
Yeah.
Um,
I started looking at the cornerback draft class, and I was like, oh, these are some good players. And now I've got to think about
nice.
the offensive
Nightmare,
line.
nightmare,
Okay.
nightmare.
um,
Um,
I'm gonna do some apologetics on the offensive line.
oh, are you now?
Yeah, I am. I am. I am. I'm not gonna say they're good. Good at football. That's a big claim.
Okay.
But they're not terrible at football. Um, and I think they were just, we're going to use the baseball terms, overexposed, right? Um,
Mm,
when you are dropping back to throw on, 90 bajillion times a game, you're not going to be able to stop the pass rush every time. Um, if you look at the team stats for offensive line, they were slightly worse than league average in terms of pressure percent. So that's 22 and a half times that Gino dropped back. There was pressure brought on from the pass rush. That is awful. That's almost a quarter of the time. So that's like a down that you've basically lost your plan on, we'll say, right? It's hard to run whatever play that you drew up when you have this pressure coming. That's the point of pressure. This is football 101. So that's like a quarter of a time. That's one down that you've lost your plan on. That's real bad. But it is only slightly worse than league average. Um, Times blitzed, blitzed 100. Blah, 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 blah. The blitz came in on the Seahawks 139 times. That's a little bit up there. It's like eighth, I believe, which is also not good. I think a lot of that is defensive coordinators knowing that the offensive line is quite stinky and bringing that pressure as much as they can to try to take advantage of that mismatch. Sorry. Boop, 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 boop. But also, yeah, third in sacks allowed, 54 sacks. That's terrible. My back would explode. Um, Luckily, though, Gino's actually quite good at scrambling. 10.3 yards a scramble, which was good for second best in the NFL. Second only to the LA Rams.
huh. Fascinating for Matthew Stafford.
Yes. Although Matthew Stafford scrambled 4 times.
Oh, well, okay.
Geno scrambled 25.
Yeah, I
Um,
was like, I feel like that's weird. Unless I was like, I didn't know Matthew Stafford was like that.
yeah. But no. The pressure percent is surprisingly average, which you would kind of expect because of the sheer volume, right? Um, that explains why the percentage is so kind of mid, while the like raw counting stats are I'm not going to say atrocious, but we are going to say quite bad. Um, 59 QB hits, for example, is not good. Um, yeah, pretty low numbers on like hurries, which is like you got to throw the ball faster than you wanted to. But I think that's because a lot of the time Gino just took the sack. Probably more than he needed to, but he already had an interception problem stemming from being hurried. So, like, it's, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Um, so that's looking at like the general kind of stats for the offensive line, like as a whole, which I think is kind of the best way to look at it because, um, like a phalanx, right?
Mm.
Kind of the Greek hoplites, everybody has to stand together as a shield wall. And if one person breaks, the whole formation crumbles. Um, if we view football, right, as a replacement to war, um, you've got your tanks and your missiles, and that's your tight ends and your wide receivers and your quarterbacks. And but your classic historical spearmen, that's your offensive line and your pass rush.
Yeah,
Um, and you gotta have the bigger spears, and you gotta maintain that cohesion. So I think it's best to look at the offensive line as a unit like that. Um, and as a unit, oh boy, they're not good. I mean, we had the center Connor Williams who decided that he didn't like football very much anymore. On day 12 of a 14-day break, which is really funny. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in those discussions because I'm sure he was talking about retiring before he actually announced it to the public. Um, Although if he did just bring it on the team, hilarious. Um, and sometimes you just got to respect knowing that you don't like football that much anymore. We saw some better offensive line play towards the end of the season. There was a run Zach Charbonnet did that I can't quite remember who it was that I broke down in pretty strong detail in one recap, where we pulled a couple guards to give like a little wedge later in the run. And
was
it
it the
actually
Cardinals game?
it might have been the Cardinals game. I keep talking about this Cardinals game. It's almost like that's one of the games that the Seahawks played the best as a team. Do, 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 do. I'm going to actually pull this up because it is important. Um, Log into Squarespace. I don't want
That's
to.
crazy.
I'm not going to be pulling this up anymore. I've decided. Um,
Um, yeah, I think when you talk about the unit aspect, that is important because you know how many times I would, look at these things and it's like, okay, they've got a new combination. Like typically the good
mhm.
offensive lines, they don't mix up a lot, right? Like
Yes.
that consistency is primarily what you're talking about, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and it's interesting. At least we go back here to the Holy Grail spot track. Like Stone Forsyth is a unrestricted free agent. Like if anything, maybe he'd be back on again a really league minimum deal. Laken Tomlinson's a free agent. I don't think that deal ended up that great. Um, obviously not as we talked about interior offensive line for so long.
Hmm.
Um, Charles Cross is under contract. George Fant is still under contract. Wow. Abe Lucas is under contract. I think Charles Cross has an option for 26. Yeah, club option. I imagine they pick that up. Like I
Yeah.
imagine they pick that up or he gets re-signed. Abraham Lucas goes into a contract year this upcoming year. Same with George Fant, but I'm less concerned about that. You've got Christian Haynes, who they drafted in the second round. Um, I really thought he was going to come in and compete for that spot, but like was talking about with that unit, like they rotated him and Anthony Bradford in and out. Satoa Lomea, who they also drafted in that draft later, ended up taking a lot of the starting. I think it was right guard position
Hmm.
later in the year. So I mean, if you're
Yes.
happy with him, then go with him. Sure.
And I think you are because he was one of the players that I was thinking of specifically that made great strides at the end of the year. He was part
Mm,
of that blocking scheme that I was trying to reference, but in that Cardinals game, I think he worked really well as a right guard, and yeah, I think he's a good big boy, and
yeah.
he
If
can
he
steam
works
over some
out,
guys when you need to.
if he works out, then that's one less interior position that you have to look at or dedicate resources to, right? Because I mean, you realistically need a center and a left guard. Like I
Hmm.
imagine you're keeping the two tackle positions for now. If Abraham Lucas doesn't work out this season, he's off the books,
Hmm.
and you're looking for another tackle, which isn't great. But I mean, it'll be interesting looking at the free agents, just looking at let's take a look here into the offensive line. Um oh, is it not gonna let me just look at offensive line? This is oh, there it is, a line. Excuse me. Oh Jesus, Zach Martin is a free agent.
Mm.
I don't think the Cowboys are gonna let him go, but that would be a massive get,
Yeah.
right? Brandon Scherf in Jacksonville, I think that was one that was kind of like people wanted. Ryan Kelly with Indianapolis as a center, James Daniels with Pittsburgh, Austin Corbett with so there are options here. I mean, none of them
Yeah.
are super young, which is fine. There's certainly options for you in free agency, and I don't imagine a ton of them should take that much money, but
Hmm.
you have to you know put resources into this. I don't know what's in the draft in that
Yeah.
regard,
I was gonna say
but
that might even be something that you look at a little bit more closely.
I would
The
have
draft
to
class.
imagine that they dedicate at least a few picks within the first 4 rounds to the interior line.
Yeah.
Right? Like at least one in the first three. Like I think that's impossible if they don't. So I don't know. Like it's clear and obvious. None of this is surprising. It's clear and obvious that they need to upgrade there. It's just how they'll do it is going to be something to watch because they haven't really ever paid too much for an interior lineman. They've made moves to get tackles, like they did obviously with drafting Cross so high and then
Hmm.
trading for Dwayne Brown back when Russell Wilson was a Seahawk. So, you know, yeah. Do you have anything other thoughts on O line before we talk about special teams and how glamorous special teams are?
Buh, buh, buh. No, I try to think about the O line as little as possible
That's
during
fair.
the off season.
That's fair.
Or I'll just pull my hair out, and we can't have two bald guys on the pod.
Well, I did a show a few weeks ago with another bald guy, and someone said, watching my two favorite balds, and I was like, wow, nice. So yeah, we'll go over to the special teams, and you kind of like you were saying there, but maybe in a more serious sense, you don't really want to have to think about the special teams. Like
Yes.
typically, if the special teams are unheard of, that's fine. That's good. Like
Hmm.
they're doing their thing, and I don't need to worry about it.
You know the place
Um,
kicker's name and about nobody else.
yeah, like unless you've got the goat Michael Dixon, um,
Texas legend, Michael Dixon.
Texas legend, hook 'em horns, and an Aussie at that. Um, so it's interesting here. Like Dixon had the punt more than probably he should have, but he did really well in that regard. Like I think he still his average is one of the best of all time currently, which is really funny.
Hmm.
Um, kicker, I'm fine with Jason Myers. Like
Money Myers.
you've got him for 2 more years under contract. I don't know where else you'd go. And I would like to avoid the rotating door of kickers once again.
Yes. I
Um,
mean, he personally beat the Chicago Bears.
he did,
I'm going to talk about
which
the game all the time because it
is
was
that a
really
feat
funny.
or is that
Haha, feet,
like
football.
oh my God, damn you.
Um,
This is why you're here.
this is why I'm here. He led the league. Sorry, he led the league in 23 in field goals attempted. That's not really something that you want as a team.
No. No, it's not. Well, and I know too, at least in terms of distance, his makes from 50 or longer like set a career high and a franchise high this year. So,
Yeah.
um yeah, no, the only thing interesting on Myers that I'll say before I talk about Mike a little bit is that his $4.95 million base salary for this upcoming year is not guaranteed, nor is his salary in 26. So if they want it, that could give them some flexibility, but I really don't think that's anything you need to touch personally. Michael Dixon, yeah, he's got 1 year remaining on his deal. I imagine you'd extend him. How fun will it be for you to write about a punter extension? Fun.
Could I could probably get like 400 words in that.
There you go. He finished his 49.4 yard average per punt was the third best in team history, and he had the fifth best hang time in the NFL. Wow. Pretty
Hang
cool.
time. Hang time.
Yes. Yes. Um,
Ooh,
let's
his
see.
touchback percent was 11.8.
There you go.
That's
Now
actually
we're really getting into it.
that's really good actually.
I think the only real thing to look at with the special teams was the return game and how horrible that turned out to be. Um, you know, undrafted rookie free agent D Williams started the season as a primary punt returner, as well as one of the two kickoff returners, along with Laviska Shenault Jr.
Yeah.
Um, and I only know about either of those guys because Laviska Shenault was fun because I know he was like this gadget player out of Colorado. And then he got to Jacksonville, where many players' careers go to die. Um, and I just didn't hear about him. And then he came here, and I was like, "Oh, cool, gadget guy." It's like I wonder what they're going to use him for, especially in Ryan Grubb's offense. And he didn't really ever touch the ball offensively.
Hmm.
Uh, and just things culminated in that horrible Jets game where there were like three fumbles on returns, and just some bad decision making in terms of return game.
Hmm.
And they were both released after that Jets game. They picked up Jalen Darden off of waivers from the Browns to handle both of those roles. I think Kenny McIntosh got some more opportunities on kickoffs as well.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, then it was just kind of pretty boring after that.
Yeah.
Like, and that's fine. Again, like a good return game can help your offense in terms of setting yourself up for field position, but like it's not something you go and spend a lot of money on. Like there are the difference makers, You remember Seahawks legend Devin Hester? Uh, um, but typically that's usually for the guys who are, lower on the depth chart in the skill positions, right? Like I could be totally fine giving that to Kenny McIntosh to show off his speed and open field skills.
Yeah.
um, I don't imagine they go out and bring anybody in for that. So, yeah, I don't know. Do
Bring
you
me
have any
Kadarius
further?
Toney. Could be fun.
Oh God, yeah, Jake's been pushing the
I
Kadarius
keep
Toney
saying it.
narrative.
I keep saying Kadarius Toney, and it's still fun. Listen, right this is a point that John Boys made originally.
Mm,
With the new kickoff style, that's like Kadarius Toney might be like the first great return specialist if they just let him cook. Nobody's
mm.
been willing to let him cook yet in the new return game, and I believe in him. His ankle problems be damned. Um, I believe in Kadarius Toney. He can do it. Certainly, um, going to be better than just trying to like throw a corner in there and just see what happens.
Yeah, like
And D Williams. And
stuff like
man,
that.
Laviska Chenault's Jets game is so funny because like he catches the ball deep in the end zone, doesn't take a knee, comes out with it, and
Uh,
immediately I was watching that and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be bad." Um, and then he goes out, fumbles, which is picked up, and I don't think it scored right then, but it does. That drive leads to a touchdown.
yeah,
Um, and then he goes out and like somehow finds a touchdown return in that same game to try to redeem himself, which
so
is
weird.
funny. And I mean, like Seahawks won that game by 5 points.
Yeah,
So like, good job, Chenault. I mean, like if he doesn't fumble, Seahawks win by more. If he doesn't make that return, they lose. If he doesn't do both, it's a
duality of man.
yeah, exactly, right? So it's like I don't know. I love a good return game. I love watching punt returns. They're very fun to me. Because like uh you can induce chaos very easily in a punt
Mm.
return. Kickoff returns kind of less so, and I mean we don't even really get them anymore because the touchback being at the 30 just like makes the touchback way too strong.
Yeah.
But we had discourse about this last offseason. We don't need to just keep yapping about the kickoff format.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm fine with it. Like,
Abolish kickoffs. Do the XFL 4th and 15 thing. That was pretty fun.
Wow. Yeah, I forgot about that. Jesus. Yeah, I would just like to generally avoid any sort of discourse among return game. Like, if it's average, I don't care. That's fine. But when it obviously becomes a detriment, I'm like, well,
yeah,
that guy's not staying around very long, is he?
That really is just kind of special teams in a nutshell, though, right? You only talk about them when they're bad. And that's the same with offensive line. Like, a good offensive line is not going to generate, ESPN top 10 Sports Center plays or whatever.
Only the sickos talk about good offensive line play.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we're here, to be the sickos. But even still, it's hard to talk about the offensive line. Oh boy, they sure did do their job again.
Let me get into my kick step. Nope. Yep. I played corner in high school. Nope.
There you go. I'm
not gonna try that.
I would really love to see you play corner now.
Nope.
Could be fun. Could be good. CSS flag football meetup.
Oh, sure. Flag football. I was like, I'm gonna get crushed.
Yeah, no, throw your weight around. See what happens.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I'd love to truck my boss.
What? That's gonna end the show. We're gonna end the show on that. Quote, I want to truck my boss and make it one of those dorky Bleacher Report ones where they just make anything a quote.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm any Jake right now. I'm on my severance arc.
Oh my God. Until we see you next time. Maybe we'll have an offensive coordinator by then. Who knows?
Who knows?
Hank Fraley, Hank Haley, Hank whatever you want to call.
Yeah. It's actually me. I'm the offensive coordinator.
Yes.
I didn't want to tell you. Scoop. We did it. We scooped something on Circling the Nest.
Until we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day. You're going to do that?
Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. I'm joined by Jen Barnes of Rough and Tumble that we happen to be at right now. Yeah. Jen, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what we're announcing today, which is our partnership.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I think all of us here at Rough and Tumble are big fans of what you and your team at Circling Seattle Sports does. And so, I know you know this, but when you came to me with this idea, it just seemed pretty natural. And it's not just me. I think a lot of people in the sports community in Seattle also really respect you and your team. So it's exciting to kind of see these two things melding together, and we're really excited to start implementing some of the things and then hopefully seeing you guys a little bit more often.
Yeah, and so with what Jen says about seeing us more often, we've got a few things in the works, but you'll see watch parties here. We'd like to do a few different of our community drives, which you'll hear about here in a little bit from now. We've got to make our announcements one at a time. I can't drop everything.
Not everything all at once.
But this has been a home for a lot of our team, whether it's myself, our friend, our photographer Liz is behind the camera. Liz is here often, so our team has kind of adopted this place kind of like our own since I saw you at our soft launch. So, it's been great to have that support. In a lot of ways, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was the Rough and Tumble embodies a lot of what Circling Seattle Sports wants to do. Obviously with women's sports, with the storm and the rain, but just being, having the game on, every game on.
Yep.
How much of that, did you see a line kind of even before this idea was mentioned when I first met you?
I think it's always felt like that. I mean, you and your team were here on opening night, and you just feel like you're part of the space, so it felt like really natural. And the fact that you actually cover all of the sports really makes your group stand out. So you are always covering all the rain games, all the storm games. You'd have women's softball, you'd have women's basketball, you'd have women's hockey. We love it. So all of those things, and obviously passionate M's fans, passionate Hawks fans, and passionate Kraken and Sounders fans. So really, from our perspective, those two things meshed really well.
So, I mean, you heard it from Jen herself, but this will be our home for all of these events, whether it's you can't make it to these games at home, we're always going to direct you to Rough and Tumble, and obviously the games on the road as well. All these, I mean, we're talking about the Reign, they've got their schedule out finally,
Yeah, yep.
but this will be our home for that.
Great.
The Storm games on the road, this is our home
Yeah,
for all intents and purposes.
I love it.
And when I mentioned it to Jen when I first had this idea come up, I had this idea come up wearing a pink wig
Yes, you did.
ahead of Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game for the Reign this past year.
Yeah.
I told her it's because I wanted this to feel genuine.
Yep.
I wanted a connection to feel genuine, and it does.
Yeah.
So that's what this is. Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, and I'm so excited to finally announce this partnership.
I can't wait.